Good morning. It is Saturday, June 6th, 2020, and I'm April West, sitting in for Tamara Johnson-shealey. I am an old friend of Tamara's. We've known each other since high school. She asked yesterday that I host this broadcast for her in her absence, and I gladly accepted. Tamara and I have known each other since, wow, we were probably 14, 15 years old. Tamara's away today. We had a childhood friend's father to pass away. So she is in our hometown in Savannah, being with our friend at his father's graveside service. So we send our condolences to Morris and his family. Today we have a few very special guests. We have Miss Monteria Robinson, whose son, Jamarion Robinson, was killed a few years ago in a horrible police incident. And we also have a few local activists here along with us. So at this time, we will bring on Ms. Robinson, Ms. Ontario Robinson, to share her story with us.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good
Once
morning, Ms. Robinson.
Good morning. Once again, my name is Monteria Robinson. I am the mother of Jamarion Robinson. A little bit about my son, who he was as a person before I get into the story. Jamarion Robinson, at the time of his death, he was a student athlete at Tuskegee University. He was a biology major. August of 2016, final semester. Jamarion, as a person, he was kind-hearted. He was loving. He was giving. He was smart. He was intelligent. He was an athlete. He was my oldest son. He was the oldest of eight grandchildren. So, I have several sisters and brothers. So he was like all our babies. And every time I always tell people, every time if I've been away from Jamarian for a couple of days, me and my sisters or my mom, but every time we see Jamarian, he would pick us up, spin us around, and just be kissing all over us. You know what I mean? And so that was like his way that he played with us. But if you see him, like, I have a lot of videos and pictures of him, he always got one of his younger cousins in his arms, picking them up, kissing on them, hugging on them. He was just always loving on everyone. What happened to my son actually on August the 5th, 2016? He was visiting he was visiting his girlfriend. He was over at her apartment. About 1:30 p.m., her door was battle rammed open by a group of rogue police officers. After they battle rammed the door open, they immediately opened fire on my son. Over 90 rounds were fired at him. They threw flashbang grenades that landed on my son, burning him. After that, someone walked up the stairs, stood over my son, shot down into his body three more times. After that, they handcuffed him and drug him down a flight of stairs. And this happened, this was a group of it was a U.S. Marshal Task Force unit that was comprised of officers from Atlanta to Fulton County to Clayton to Fayette County. So it was a total of about 17 like officers all together that were on the scene. And my son was just one person in the apartment by himself watching TV, minding his own business when that happened. Getting back to, after they handcuffed him, they drug him down the flight of stairs. They dropped his body right there in the living room where he laid there for over 8 hours with no medical aid rendered. My mother and my brothers arrived on the scene after the death of my son, and my mother was like, she was outraged, and she was asking them, why would you all do something like this? They said to my mother, "Oh, we were looking for him from a week ago. He pointed a gun at a police officer and took off running." And then the GBI lady said, "Well, here's a photo of him right here." My mother stated, "That's not my grandson." And my two brothers went, "No, that's not our nephew." My older brother then went, "My nephew looks like me." And he flipped out his phone, showed the GBI lady what my son looked like. She asked my brother to airdrop the photo to her, and so my brother did. They took that photo, dropped it on the news that night, and stated East Point man had a shootout with police today. And with all, and I'm gonna just stop right there, and just kind of let you guys marinate on that.
It's so they claim there was a shootout, but it sounds like a murder assassination. And with
And
like
and I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what it was, because they were not expecting for anyone to. They just thought we would take their word on what happened to my son, and I was like, no, come with a better narrative than that, because my son was a student athlete at Tuskegee University at the time of his death. Like I stated, he was a biology major. He was in his final semester. And if you know me or know my family, my son wasn't even that type of person. There is no evidence, and I know all the facts pertaining to my son case. There is no evidence that shows that my son had a gun. There's no all the false narrative that they made up, they were actually lies, because my family and I, we hired our own forensic, we hired our own ballistic person, as well as our own investigator. It was my investigator that discovered the bullets that were enlarged in the floor upstairs where my son was actually where he actually died at. It was my investigator that discovered those bullets, which indicated someone stood over my son and shot down into his body. My son had six bullets to the palm of his right hand. He had five bullets in the palm of his left hand. He was shot all down his arms, his torso, his groin, his thighs, his shins, his feet. So there was never a shootout. So they basically dropped that false narrative so the community wouldn't react. So the community would think that it was actually a shootout. So if you hear that on the news, you're gonna be like, oh, it was just somebody who had a shootout with police. You're not gonna really pay it too much of attention. But when my investigators started to go in and pull all the facts, the condition of his body, his defensive wounds, and my son has a motorcycle. So my son, I'm telling you, I used to always call him the speeding ticket king, because he always used to get speeding tickets. So he would get pulled over by police. He always complied. He just always complied. He was never the type of person. He didn't even cuss. Basically, people know typically his age. And him growing up as a child, my son was a good son. I never had no issues with him. I never had no problems. When they go into their teenage years, they be smart. They talk back. They do all kind of crazy stuff. But Jamarion was never that person. He was always the type of person. He would say, "Mama, I'm gonna make you proud. I'm going to," because his dream or his goal was to be, was to play professional football.
And that dream was definitely shattered that day in August. We've got a few other community activists here, and I want to allow them to talk to you, Ms. Robinson. We've got Arthur Ward from ADOS Chicago here.
Yes.
Mr. Ward, good morning.
Good morning.
The horrible story. I'm just.
Wow.
I know. I'm seriously in a state of shock. Tamara asked me to not do research on the case. She said, "I want you to let Ms. Robinson share her story, and you hear it from this young man's mother."
Right. No, this is the first time I heard of this story, period. And this was in August, and my condolences to you, ma'am. But wow. And
Thank you.
I don't understand why this particular case did not get more coverage, because I'm a constant watcher of the news and monitoring what's going on in the political sphere, and I never heard this case.
But that's the reason. That was because the media and the police dropped the false narrative, on my son, and we couldn't even get really like CNN. I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. I live here, and we couldn't even get CNN to cover my story. And because all they kept was, oh, he had a shootout with police. But I've been out here for 4 years strong. Like if you Google my son's name, it's like I pop up all over. And I've been telling people this is a false narrative. This is a lie. Look at the condition of my son's body. It indicates there was never a shootout. But now, as the years have come, we're in 2020 now. People have their cell phones. People are recording stuff. But someone recorded. Well,
We can't hear her.
April, can you?
Robinson?
We just lost her signal.
Yeah, we lost her.
I actually did do a little research with Tamara's permission, and I have to say exactly what Ms. Robinson is stating is accurate. The narrative from the media, non-independent media, made it seem like there was some type of a shootout, like there was a gun involved. They didn't. There was nowhere where it said mistaken identity. Those two words never referenced that. And we see this now 4 years later in 2020. This happened in 2016. If the media was not complicit, if CNN was not complicit in not covering the true reality of what occurred, maybe now 4 years later, we wouldn't have a myriad of people of color dead at the hands of police and CNN burning down. There's some almost justice in the fact that CNN burns down. You just heard this woman, I don't know if he's her only son, but what the resilience of this woman is incredible to talk about it in this fashion and not have justice 4 years later. It's still in the courts.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I'm really at a loss for words to think that this happened and no one's talked about this.
Mm. You know what? I got a theory, and my personal theory is that one of the reasons why this continues to happen is because Black people, not people of color, but Black people are too forgiving.
Mm.
And every time that we forgive, it's like we put a target on ourselves for it to happen again, because people know that they can do these things to us with no consequences. Okay. One of the things that I praise about the Jewish community is that even if you talk wrong, not even talking about a shooting, even if you talk wrong about the Jewish people in any kind of media, they come at you, and there are consequences when you do that. Black people, you go, a white person comes to a church, shoots your mom's brains out, and the first thing you do is you go to the courthouse and run up to him and forgive him.
Yeah.
That never made any sense to me. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm not a Christian anymore, because I just hate the whole idea that somebody can abuse you and then you have to forgive them, and then what they do is they turn around and abuse you again. I can't do that anymore.
So are you in favor of the protest/riots in Atlanta? I personally, I can't speak for Black people. Native Americans seem pretty forgiving to me too. But I don't know, I'm not Native American either. Puerto Rico, I am half Puerto Rican and half Latino, South American, and Puerto Ricans are, I mean, they've been colonized forever. They don't have the dollars, they don't import anything, they don't make anything.
Right.
I can't vote. They seem pretty forgiving too. They're not taking over the hotels and kicking the tourists off the islands, off the island. But here in Atlanta, we've got this narrative of media and this kind of kumbaya. Our mayor is on CNN. I'm curious, what do you think of that, given your position? Because honestly, Ms. Robinson does not seem forgiving. She seems...
No, she shouldn't be.
Yeah, and she doesn't. She seems like...
No, she should not be.
She
should not be. No, she should not be forgiving. There should be force, there should be words, and there should be consequences. Yes, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Ms. Robinson, are you back?
We can hear you.
We
can see you.
Guys hear me?
We can hear you. We just cannot see you.
Saying that the host has to add me to the show, but my name is here. Maybe the video. Let me hit the video. So the video is saying this. I don't know why the video is not showing me at this time. I did allow video and audio.
Okay. Samson Burrell, good morning.
You guys can still hear me, correct?
Yes.
I can hear
Good
you,
morning.
Ms. Robinson. Hey, Sam.
You can
You guys
definitely
can
hear
hear
you.
me, correct?
Miss Robinson, do you
Okay.
have you seem like a lovely woman who has had this horrific experience. You've been in the course for 4 years, and what has this done to you in your life? What is this? I mean, I'm sure you seem so capable, and I feel like if you could have gotten us, if there was a way to do it, you could have done it. What do you think has been the holdup for you, for your son, for justice for your son?
Okay, I can't actually understand what you're saying because you guys are staticky, very staticky. You are, Robbie, you're staticky on my end. But can someone else ask me the question that she just did? Because it didn't come through very clear on my end.
So, Ms. Robinson, Robbie, if I can sum this up for you, Robbie, you're basically asking where are you getting your strength from? You seem to be a very strong woman, and you're advocating for your son. This is still currently in the justice system. Can you tell us where you are with that process?
Yes, sure. Actually, we the beginning of this year, I met with the DA or the district attorney here in Atlanta. And actually, we were supposed to move forward with the grand jury presentation. All of that was supposed to originally start the 1st of March, but the virus happened. So we're right now at a standstill. But in the interim, in the meantime, you had one of the officers that was involved in the tasing of the college students. He was one of the officers that was involved in my son's murder. So now that kind of made people start to pay attention to my son's case because I think I heard Robbie state that how you got the mayor and the governor, different people coming on the news, indicating, oh, Atlanta is a great city. No, it's not. That's a lie, and I addressed that recently. That's a lie. There has been 130 killings, over 130 killings of brown and black men since 2015 here in Atlanta, Georgia, or really here in the state of Georgia, I should say. And nobody is being held accountable. And if you like Google my son's name, like you said, you always see me at different protests, different marches, different events. I've been advocating strongly, for my son the last 4 years because I was like, no, I'm not gonna let the media dehumanize my son, and I am the voice for my son, Jamarion Robinson. So that's my job, that's my mission, that's been really my full-time job for the last 4 years, advocating and being the voice for my son, Jamarion Robinson. But as we hear play out all the time in the media, oh, they always say that person had a gun, that person had a weapon, but that's the police version of what happened. So if we all saw the actual footage or of the students being tased, if that was being live and they know they're being recorded, imagine what happens when the cameras are off.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like you said earlier, people have their cell phones everywhere and they're recording at all times. So the police are definitely getting noticed for the things that they're doing a lot more. I mean, the spotlight is on them when they're doing things, but imagine when people don't have their phones, what's really happening out there.
Miss Robinson, given the new situation in Atlanta and the reforms that the task force that the mayor is creating, I'm actually not surprised what you've shared about about the officer involved in the tasing of the students being involved, because there hasn't been proper oversight over the police. And I'm not surprised about what you're saying. We've been following police brutality, and I'm not surprised at all how you feel about Atlanta. I actually concur. I feel the exact same way you do. What would you like to see in terms of real reform in the justice system? What would have made a difference for your son? Because you've been here 4 years at this. You have not been silent. What would it take to really make a difference? What do you think? You live this.
Well, what I actually think, number one, we got to get rid of that qualified immunity. That is
Mm,
a federal law that has existed for a very long time. We have to actually, we got to get rid of that law, because as long as that law exists, they have they give them really the legal right to execute us, and nothing will happen. Like, they will not be held accountable. That's why they continue to do it.
mm,
The district attorneys are not prosecuting them. They have the willpower to be able to, arrest, indict, and convict. And so we're putting these days in office, and they're failing our community. Just because they look like us don't mean they're for us. Number two, and as far as they keep saying, oh, all police officers are not bad police officers. And that's true, but they're standing by, and they're allowing it. And so my thing is, I feel like out of 100%, let's say if you got 100% of the police force, maybe 5% are good guys. The other 95% are bad guys. So what do you do with the system of that magnitude? I think it's best to dismantle it. I mean, because my family, my friends, all of my loved ones, we do not trust the police. And then you have police officers that look like us, and they're the worst a
mm.
lot of times. So, that's just my thought on it. But the
Oh,
main thing, we gotta work together. We got to get that qualified immunity. We gotta get that erased from the books.
now I thought qualified immunity only applied to the FBI, but you guys in Georgia have that kind of law on your books for the state.
Their legal funds are like, when a police officer gets sued, he doesn't even pay for his own legal fees.
Oh
We
wow.
do that as taxpayers. They have when she says qualified immunity, I've sued APD,
Mm,
and I was with, I mean, we didn't have a murder, but there was a woman I was with who was profiled, and it was a table of people of color, and we did sue, and that officer never paid a dime to
mm.
legal fees. He was protected, and he was protected not only financially, but under color of law. Actually, it was an off-duty officer. Y'all probably seen the incident. IHOP cop. He was off duty and still protected by qualified immunity.
Wow.
What happened with that case?
Actually, I'd like to know about if Ms. Robinson used the Office of Professional Standards, because I went through the process with the Office of Professional Standards, and I'm just going to be real plain about it. It was a sham. They didn't want to know the truth. They were looking on how they could get out of it, how they could protect him, how they could protect the blue shield. And Ms. Robinson, did you use the Office of Professional Standards? Did you use the constituency board? Because this is all being looked at now. If my audio's choppy, I can come out and come back in. And maybe Ms. Robinson, can she come out and come back in so we get a better signal?
Miss Robinson, let's
Yeah,
do
it is
that.
kind of very choppy, and you're
I'm
very
gonna log out and come back in. I'll be back.
So it's not really clear. So we're trying to figure out what your some stuff I catch, and a lot of things that I mentioned I missed. I know you talked about the color law, the profession, but all of that is included in my civil suit, as you stated. But I do know, it is also up to these judges to decide, to make the decision, whether they're going to, say, no, I'm going to hold you liable for this death. And they can say, we're going to not look at the qualified immunity, because I'm going to, because the thing is, you have to be able to provide, the facts, or the evidence basically on your cases. And so, with that being said, we have hired a forensic person, invested. Well, actually, we have two forensic people on my son's case. We got
Mm.
several experts. I got 4 to 6 experts. I'm not going to even go into details, but I had to do all of that. I had to bring in 4 to 6 experts in order to prove what happened to my son. And so now that I do have that, as evidence, as proof, But other than that, a lot of people don't know actually what it takes, in order to win these cases. Because really, a lot of times the judges will vote they will sway in the opinion of the officers. So 9 times out of 10, the officers, they always win because they have that qualified immunity.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you know how your representatives from the state of Georgia feel about qualified immunity? Because right now, as we speak, after the George Floyd incident, there's some moves in the U.S. Congress to eliminate qualified immunity. It's being led by U.S. Representative Lacey Clay. This is a Democrat from Missouri that's leading this charge. So do you guys know how your legislators from Georgia feel about the qualified immunity doctrine?
Ms. Robinson, is there any way that you can log out and log back in? We really want to see you. This story is very compelling,
Okay,
and we would love for you to continue.
Okay, sure. Give me just a second. I'll be right back.
If you please, thank you.
In terms of your question, Mr. Ward, with qualified immunity in Georgia, our legislators, our leadership is right now kind of on the spotlight nationally. I'm sure you know the Democrats are trying to beat Trump. They are lobbying for the Black vote. So our leadership is being lobbied. Keisha Lance, right. And so she's been all over the news, especially, and it's a strange situation because Atlanta is one of the blackest cities, in the country, and yet we had riots and protests too. And she started off with, "Go home, you're better than this," and upset with people. And then not even a week later, when the riots didn't stop, the protests didn't stop, she was 2 days ago walking with protesters. So
wow.
And the Democrat, Joe Biden is on it because he's on the news saying he's in awe of her. That was when she was saying go home. So it's a fascinating, especially when you link it to what Ms. Robinson is talking about. Ms. Robinson has been seeking justice for her son for 4 years.
Right.
And 76 bullets and a false narrative in the media. So this is why people are happy CNN burned down. You heard her. She couldn't even get CNN to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
You ask, what are our politicians doing? Our politicians were upset about the CNN building burning down. Ms. Robinson is right. Like, you can't argue with her. This woman is not forgiving. She put her own money in there. Luckily, she had it. Luckily, she had the money to do that for her son. So what now, 4 years later, why should an officer get protected with our tax funds for an investigation? Let them lose their house. Let them lose their job. That's when we'll stop seeing people murdered. 76 bullets with a young man, a student.
Right.
And for some, even if he wasn't, even if he was a criminal, even if he was guilty, does that give the police the right to murder people? No, they're only
supposed to shoot when being shot at.
It's almost we're justifying, if somebody, that's why these false narratives, it's okay this happened because he deserved it or whatever. The police are not the trial. They're not executioners.
No.
And we've excused that.
Right. That's the point that I was making earlier. We keep excusing.
I'm with you. This is going to sound real strange, but I'm glad this is all happening.
Yeah.
Because people like Miss Robinson and people like Brianna and people like Ahmaud Arbery and people like for years this has been happening and nobody's done anything. Nobody, and now it came to a head. They burned the streets down. Good.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we change the mentality of Black people who accept this kind of stuff?
Wow. Oh, that's, you know what? Actually, I think that's the harder piece to deal with than the people that oppose us.
Yeah.
We have so much what I call bad thinking in our community that it keeps building a bridge, what I call a bridge to abuse. Anytime that you got a candidate that will tell you that you're not Black unless you vote for me, or if someone brings up the fact that Black people built this country through slavery and so forth, and then that same candidate turns around and says, no, immigrants built this country, and we still vote for them. We have a problem, not him. So I don't have an answer for how to turn that around. The best answer that I can give at this point is education. That's what we've been doing up here in Chicago. We have slowly been turning people around to being interested in their interests, being adamant about things that benefit them that they're not getting. Okay, being adamant about changing the mores in your community, because it is the white man's responsibility to make sure that we get the resources that we pay taxes for, but at the same time, when those taxes land in our community, how they're deployed and how we behave with each other and how we deal with our politicians, that's our problem.
I mean,
And someone just asked me about before I tried to come back in, about that qualified immunity. Actually, I conducted a press conference this past Tuesday, June 2nd, with several state representatives here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
But we're in discussion about that qualified immunity. So we're working on something as we speak right now in reference to qualified immunity, because we gotta get that taken away. We
to
got
the state reps, just so we can maybe reach out to them. And this is VA Paul Howard, right? Just so people are clear.
Yeah, yes. Because what I'm wanting to happen, I want people to stay in the street. I want people to, I just submitted a petition this morning. I dropped it to my Facebook page, saying what is it that I want as the voice for Jamarion Robinson. I want these officers arrested, because all of those officers that were involved in my son's death, they all have criminal history backgrounds within the police department, such as aggravated assault, burglary, kidnapping, felony murder. You had the what's his name, the officer Sauls that was arrested for tasing the students. He got two murders. He got one from '95 and he got one from 2015, as well as he was involved in my son's murder. He was actually the one who handcuffed my son and dragged my son down the stairs. So he was involved in that murder. So that's three. Number four, he was involved in the tasing of the students. So imagine if no one would have, like I stated earlier, they know they're being filmed. So imagine what happens when there's no cameras involved.
Mm-hmm.
I just friended you and signed your petition, and I'm going to share it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for doing this after 4 years and not giving up.
Yes, it's been a long journey. And I heard you saying you're so strong, but I always say I'm a warrior. I'm a queen warrior. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna fight. And it's like I'm not just fighting for my son. I was basically fighting to prevent George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery. And I'm from Brunswick, Georgia. So when I saw Ahmaud Arbery, they're family to my family in Brunswick, Georgia, because Brunswick is so small. So when I saw that was my tipping point too. It's like me and several of the mothers here in Atlanta. It's like we just lost it. We just snapped. And so, I'm getting calls from the district attorney's office. They're trying to, I would say, get me to stand down. But who is not standing down is Jamarion Robinson's mother. Because to me, you should have been arrested, these officers. They should have been indicted. They should have been convicted. And yes, I am mad. I am angry because they're still out patrolling our communities. And because think about it. I'm sure you guys been watching CNN, the news the last couple of days. This police brutality is happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And then they're thinking they're not, and you see them look over their shoulders to see if anyone filming them, and they're thinking they're not being filmed, so they're going in harder. You follow me? So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to continue to fight. I got a couple of events lined up from today, but Keisha Lance Bottoms, um, Paul Howard, Governor Brian Kemp, is not the last of Monteria Robinson, the mother of Jamarion Robinson. I'm going to keep pushing it because to me, you're on TV, Keisha Lance Bottoms, crying about property, cry about the deaths of our sons, cry about how they're killing us every single day here in the United States of America, cry about that. Let's address what's going on here in your state. You can't address what's going on in other states. You and Brian Kemp address the 130 something plus deaths that had happened since 2015. Let's get on the news and discuss that. Let's talk about that to the media.
Miss Robinson, when I don't know if you heard the whole question that I was asking. I was talking about, I was asking, how does your federal representatives from Georgia feel about qualified immunity? And the reason I'm asking is because I'm aware, as of right now, of Representative Lacy Clay, he's a Democrat from Missouri, that's making a move in the House of Representatives to eliminate qualified immunity. And as you know, once it's eliminated at the federal level, that will automatically nullify those laws on the books on all the states at the state level. So that's what I was asking.
So you're asking me like how my federal attorney feels about that?
No, federal representatives, your U.S. representatives from Georgia and your senators from Georgia. That's what I was asking.
That's a good question. And that's like, as I said before, that's something that we're currently working on. I have been working with some of the Georgia representatives here in Georgia. I called a press conference, so it was me, Renita Shannon,
okay,
and several of the other Park Cannon, Ben Wynn, Ben Wynn, and several B Wynn, and several of the other representatives and senators. They are for, that's getting that that qualified immunity removed. So we are currently, like I stated, right now in discussion, because that was our, I would say, our demand. We demand to have this qualified immunity removed, because as long as that exists, everybody is woke to it, because I've been in discussion with them about it over the last 2 weeks. So we're, that's our goal, is to get that removed, and they're ready to, to address it, basically.
Okay. Well, it would be a good idea that that with you being in contact with your U.S. congressman from Georgia, to exhort them to sign on with Lacy Clay from Missouri to get that bill passed, because that is what Lacy is working on right now.
Okay, definitely. I'm glad you're giving me this information right now, because I'm taking like notes. Because I was like, I do know certain other states, and I think California and those other states are working on it too as well. So we'll definitely get with our representatives here to get them to, let's all, we need to have it signed off on, and it needs to be around the, around the board.
Yeah, yeah. Because while this George Floyd thing is hot, this is actually the best time to get it passed, because it would look really bad for the Republicans to go against it. You know what I'm saying? This is the best time to get this thing done and over.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. So yeah, we're definitely on top of it.
Okay.
Have you did you use the Office of Professional Standards at all? And have you attempted to meet with Mayor Bottoms?
Yes, I have. Myself and other mothers have reached out to the mayor's office, over the last couple of years. I know I requested to meet with her. I would say it's probably about a year and a half ago now, and she declined, meeting with me, as well as several of the mothers that have lost their kids to police violence here in Georgia. She has declined them as well. I also reached out to the former mayor, that was the former mayor prior to her. He declined to meet with me as well. So they feel like, I don't know, like, I don't have time for them, but I'm sure right now she probably would love to meet with me, but I don't have time for her right now. And I'm just going, to me, we put you in, we voted you into office, and it would be easy for us to get you out of office. So that's my goal, to get them out of their seats, because they're not for the people. And then, just like I stated earlier, just because they look like us does not mean that they're for us.
What do you think of Biden's commentary that he's in awe of how Lance Bottoms, our mayor, is handling these protests, and I would love, I know that you said you don't have time, but someone like you is who should be on the task force that she's created. Police reform task force, because you have lived it. You know exactly what's wrong. Was the Office of Professional Standards helpful at all? For those of you who don't know, that's the office that you go to when you have a police problem, and they review what the officers did. And a lot of people, there's even a citizen review board. Did you deal with them, Ms. Robinson?
Well, actually, I do know that, my son case was investigated internally, within by the U.S. Marshals themselves, by Chief Erica Shields' office, who is the chief of police. Uh, the I know GBI, they did the actual write-up, basically. They submitted that to the district attorney. But I can say that, when they came across Chief Erica Shields' desk, as well as the U.S. Marshal, and internally, they all were investigated within, because, the U.S. Marshal Task Force that killed my son, it comprised of Atlanta, Fulton County, different counties, Clayton County, Fayette County, uh, so on and so forth. But they all were, I basically found innocent, and they closed the incident reports.
Mm.
Do you have any respect for those agents? I mean, what you're saying, Ms. Robinson, is that you went through every channel available to you to get justice for your son, that we fund as taxpayers, the Office of Professional Standards, the Citizen Review Board, the GBI, everyone looked into it. Your son, mistaken identity, unarmed, 76 bullets, 4 years later, no justice. Paul Howard. What do you think of these agencies? Do you think they're even...
Well, actually, I am these agencies. I feel like they need to go. Chief Erica Shields, we need to get her out of office, because these cases are coming across her desk, and she's closing the incident report. And I was so angry when I saw her and Keisha Lance Bottoms on the news. They were talking about, I think, George Floyd case, and how they were appalled. No, you should have been appalled when you saw my son's case, when that came across your desk and he was shot 76 times. That's what you should have been appalled about. How you going to talk about you appalled about something that happened in another state? Let's address the issues that's going on in the state of Georgia, and see what they're trying to portray to the media. Oh, this does not happen in the Black Mecca. No, they're killing our kids here too.
Yes. I mean, that's evident.
And CNN's not covering it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, what? CNN what?
And CNN's not covering it. They wouldn't even speak with you.
But I'm gonna tell you why CNN is not covering it. I feel like because, I always stated that, my son's story never made world news or national news due to the false narrative created by the police and the media. And that's so true. Because we have, sent so many press releases to CNN. Like, who wouldn't want to cover this story? Like when it happened, and over the course of the last couple of years. I feel like they've been being paid. And I've heard other mothers too indicate the same thing when they try to get their stories covered here in Atlanta, that CNN would never pick it up. And CNN is here in Atlanta, Georgia. So I feel like they're all in that same bucket. Let's not show the world what's really going on here in Atlanta, Georgia. We'll show these other states, but we don't want people to think Atlanta is a bad state or a bad place to be. So no, it's a lie when they go on TV and say, "Oh, that doesn't happen in our city." Yes, it does. Stop lying. And I've been calling them out. I've been name dropping them, and I will continue to do so. Chief Erica Shields, we want you out of office, because not only my case have come across her desk, and my case, in my opinion, and I'm sure you all can agree with me, that it's appalling.
It is, absolutely.
It is.
So how is it that you find George Floyd case appalling, but you did not find Jamarion Robinson case appalling, and look into it and investigate your office internally? So now you got everything backfiring, and people are going to do their homework, because my investigator pulled their records after my son was first killed, but that was, 4 years ago. So I can imagine what's on their records now, those same officers that was involved in my son's case. And I can say this too. I know that one of the officers that actually did the shooting, He died a few months ago. Doyle is his name. Timothy Daniel Dole, something. He died a few months ago from pancreatic cancer. I said
Mm.
karma. I just said karma. Now you got William Saul being arrested. So he got several things against him. Now you got another one, Hutchinson. He's been indicted. They indicted him for felony murder, but the jury don't want to convict officers too. That's another issue. You're getting these jurors in that don't. They feel like, oh, police officers are good people. They're Christians. They're loving. No, police officers have been given, I always say the legal authority or the right to kill us. So basically, they're allowing it, and they don't want to hold these officers accountable. So that's why these officers know they can do it, because they be like, oh, they'll probably give me like 3 to 5 years. I'll do a few months, and I'll be back home with my family.
And a lot of the positions she's talking about, these are appointed judges. So, and to some degree, Paul Howard, the district attorney, after how many years now? Because he's up for re-election. There's a question now about him.
Yeah, he's been the DA for 23 years. And it's like, now you're trying to do something. The reason you're trying to do something is because people are paying attention. Media is now showing, we're seeing on CNN a black commentator being arrested, on CNN News, because people were thinking, oh, it's not. I'm sure that it's not that bad. But when they saw him get arrested, they go, wait a minute, he's the media commentator. He didn't do anything wrong, and they see them put him in handcuffs. So they're like, oh my God, it's just they are living a nightmare in the United States of America.
Ms. Robinson, we've got a couple of viewers that have questions for you. One woman is asking, she says that we've heard Killer Mike and a few other celebrities giving speeches in the last few days. Would a celebrity like him or someone else bring attention or support to Jamarion's memory? What will help you?
Well, I've talked with, I spoke to Killer Mike before in the past, and they're familiar with my son's story. Actually, to be honest, my son's story now, actually before I think Ahmaud Arbery was killed, it started trending, like really, it was trending. And then Ahmaud Arbery was killed. And so it's been trending like the last, I would say, 4 weeks, if not more. Because I go out, I'm giving out flyers. I've been on protests. I get on the stages. I share his story. So when I say my son's case is moving like fire now, and then when I was the one who discovered that, I was the one who discovered that Officer Saul was one of the officers involved in my son's case. So I reached out to the student attorney to inform them, hey, this is one of the officers that was involved in my son's murder too. And as I stated, if you look at all the officers, because it's open records, the complaints and stuff, if you go in, you look at those officers and see, and that's an issue too with me. These officers, they have several complaints written from incidents that they've done in the past years ago, and they still allowing them to come back out and police the community. Like Officer Saul, he killed somebody in '95, he killed somebody in 2015. He was associated with my son's death. Now this tasing incident. Why wasn't this addressed back in '95? Why was he still being allowed to be out on the street? This could have prevented the tasing of the student, et cetera, et cetera. So we got to get really deep in this. We got to get really involved as a community. We want to, we need to be on those boards when they start reviewing these officers' complaints. Because to me, if you don't kill one person and you kill another one, something is wrong with that.
Mm.
And you're not held accountable for it. You're allowed to continue your job because it's okay. That's wrong.
And what she's describing really is a pattern, a propensity for violence that has been ignored, meaning the people who are in those positions of oversight, including Chief Shields, are complicit. They've left officers on the force who closed up cases that clearly were problematic, knew these officers had a propensity for violence or abuse, and those officers went in turn, just like you heard this eyewitness have turned around and harmed other people, irreputable harm sometimes. So, I mean, when I look at these reforms on the Citizen Review Board, when I used it, couldn't even cover certain aspects. This component of, oh, we only cover this, that should be abolished. The qualified immunity, to Ms. Robinson's point, us taxpayers should not be funding legal fees for any questionable officer, even if it's chief. And to your point, Mr. Ward, when we, I hear you, because I wonder, why Puerto Rico doesn't rise up. But when we don't even have the full story, when our media is changing the narrative to suit whatever, how do people really select what they do when we don't even know the full story? Like,
well, see, nowadays when you say the media, now I don't even remember how old I am. I'm 63 years old. Okay. When you say the media, that meant something when I was 20. Okay. Because the media was the media. Nowadays, the media is everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so therefore, you have a lot of people out here that are trusted in the community to give an objective and truthful narrative as to what's really happening. So my thing is, who are you listening to? Not so much the media, but who are you listening to in terms of presenting the narrative nowadays? Because, up here in Chicago, people listen to me. I'm not the media, but a lot of people here consider me to be. That's for sure. And the reason why they trust me is because I give them an objective viewpoint.
But isn't that to some degree, like, then if you really hear what you're saying, right? Because I hear what you're saying, then Mayor Bottom's taking Killer Mike and T.I. and asking them, what do you think about that then?
Let me answer that question.
Please.
Because, I, when I saw, Killer Mike and T.I., on TV with Keisha Lance Bottoms, I was like, how dare she have the audacity, like, to bring two black men, on national television to denounce black protesting, in a city that does not even recognize or convict officers for the killing of innocent brown and black people. I was like, get out of here with that hypocrisy. You know what I mean? We lost our kids in your city to police killings, and all you want to talk about is property damage.
Right.
So that pissed us off. That pissed the community off. That made us mad. That made us angry. Like, get out of here talking about property damage. People who got property, they're supposed to have insurance on commercial buildings and things. And then she was saying, oh, they're burning down their own community. No, they were not. They were burning down downtown Atlanta, CNN, and things of that nature. They were busting out windows and things of that in downtown Atlanta. The last time I checked, Killer Mike and T.I. don't own no commercial property down in the city of Atlanta and downtown, the CNN and all in that area. So I was like, get out of here with that crazy talk, basically. You follow what I'm saying?
Right. I'm also insulted every time something serious goes down in the black community. The mainstream media goes to either entertainers or preachers to talk about our issues. I've always thought that was kind of crazy.
As if they're our spokesperson.
Yeah. No preacher is my spokesperson, that's for sure. And most entertainers are ignorant. That's why they say stupid things. So
yeah, because they could be killed themselves. Because they all have children, nephews, and things of that nature. When the police stop and pull them over, they're not gonna say, "Is your dad T.I.?
Right.
Is your dad Killer Mike? Is your
Exactly.
dad Jay-Z?" They're not gonna ask them that. They're gonna kill them first, and then they'll find out later who's who. So now they're finding out as they do different things oh, that's the daughter of such and such, such and such. Like when the students were related to, I think, wasn't a civil rights activist or something like that here out of Atlanta.
Okay.
But they're not gonna say before I kill you, who are you related to? So you know what I mean? They're not gonna ask them those questions. They're gonna kill them, and then they'll find out. And I always say that too about my son. They thought my son was nobody. My
Mm,
son comes from a military, college educated family. So my family, when when after my son's death, they were like, we want to see the bullets. We want to see the trajectory of the bullets. We want to see the shell case, and we want to see his body. We want, they start, naming all of these things that they did not think my family would know. You follow
right.
what I'm saying? And so we were like, y'all just messed up. Y'all got the wrong family this time. And as you stated, a lot of people do not, they just take their word on what happened to their children. But I was like, no, y'all not just gonna paint this false narrative about my son.
I think Miss Robinson hit it on the head. I think the
Yeah.
people in the streets who have had their relatives murdered, abused, uh, profiled,
Yep.
set up by police, they know. And so that exactly which they thought my son was nobody. Until everybody gets justice, we shouldn't leave the streets.
Hmm.
Agreed. Ms. Robinson, can you share with us your website, uh, any social media outlets that you have available that we can share with our our followers right now?
And who is her attorney? Who's the firm handling the case?
My attorney is attorney Mario Williams. He's here in Atlanta. And and I ask you guys to, to get involved, stay involved, please help share my son's story. Also too, I'm asking, the community to stay in the streets for Jamarion Robinson. Let
Right.
the man justice, I'm gonna be circulating a flyer, probably starting later today. And I want people to let's show up at Fulton County Courthouse at 2 p.m. on Monday, this coming Monday, and let's demand that they arrest these officers that executed my son. And I'm going to say this to you guys. I've seen all of the documentation. I've seen all of the reports, all of the complaints, the GBI paperwork. I've seen all of that. So I know, what happened to my son. So everything I've been saying from day one, my son was executed. My son was murdered. My son did not have a gun. All of that is facts and all of that is true. And I'll stand on that right here now today. There's no evidence of nothing. Everything was made up. Everything was falsified. And so my attorney is saying he's coming for them. And I'm glad, that he can actually say, he's coming for them. They did kill the wrong person or wrong child that day. So, I'm so glad that, I have a lot of activists here in Atlanta, Georgia, that's been
Hmm.
staying down with me, working with me, helping me. And I appreciate their help because it's like they believed in me. They trusted me because from day one, I said, when they were saying, oh, he had a shootout, I was like, no, come with a better narrative than that. But that's what, like, and so every article, like my son's story has made Associated Press and all of the big top line, how you say it, uh, news platforms, but they all start the story out. Oh, Jamarion Robinson, he was killed. He had a shootout with police. They start the story to that effect. So now people are seeing that what I stated in the beginning is actually facts. Go
Mm,
back and look at the history of these officers. They all have felonies within the police departments themselves. All
mm.
of the ones that were involved in my son's murder. So who's the criminals now?
Oh,
That,
wow. Okay.
that is a wonderful way to end this broadcast today. Ms. Robinson, I
Hmm.
thank you for your heartfelt story. We all need to say his name. His name was Jamarion Robinson, and
Jamarion Robinson.
Jamarion Robinson.
Okay.
Jamarion
Jamarion
Robinson is going to be remembered, and these officers need to be brought to justice. So, Ms. Robinson, is there a website or anything that we can share?
Yes, my website is justiceforjamarion.com. .org. And they can find everything on there. You know, my hashtags is Justice for Jamarion, hashtag Justice for Jamarion Robinson. They can follow me on Instagram at Justice for Jamarion, and Twitter is just Jamarion Robinson.
Okay.
Okay. And that's Justice for Jamarion or
So hashtag Justice for Jamarion Robinson, hashtag Justice for Jamarion. My website is justiceforjamarion.org.
well, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Tamara Johnson-Shealey for sharing your story with us. And thank you to our other guests, Mr. Arthur Ward from ADOS Chicago,
Hmm.
Robbie Caban, local Atlanta community activist. I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to sit in for Tamara today. And Ms. Robinson, know that we are with you and we will share your son's story and he will not be forgotten. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.